Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Virtual Counterculture with Forever Cheese. I'm especially excited about this virtual event this afternoon because it features my friend, Michelle Buster, who I've gotten to know through our travels in Spain and just working with her at Culture. And I know it's going to be a fabulous presentation this afternoon. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping rules, which some of you may be very familiar with, but I'll repeat them anyway. Be sure to use the chat feature to ask your questions, or you can use the Q&A. Michelle is very willing to answer your questions throughout the presentation, but we'll also have a designated time for questions at the end. I hope you've all gotten your cheeses out of the refrigerator in advance and have them ready to go. I'm very proud of my boards. I'm going to show you. Have all the cheeses, the jam, and the taralli. Just lost one of those choco nut things. And then the other thing I want to tell you is just make sure that you are using the speaker view. So I'm not going to take any more of your time because Michelle has a lot to get to. So enjoy, sit back, relax, and enjoy your time with Michelle Buster and Forever Cheese.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Yeah, it was an extra special plus to be able to spend time in Oviedo with Marino and around and always kind of running around. Today is kind of a mix that we wanted to talk to you. For those of you who get our newsletter, you know that I have some things on my mind, and one of them is the shortage with Manchego. And I don't know, do you start there we go. Okay, you can just go to the next slide. So I guess I'll talk about me for who doesn't know me, and then I'll go into the shortage of Manchego. Here, for those of you who don't know, it's groundbreaking news, but we have brought on a partner with us after all these years, since 1993 that I worked with Pierluigi on the left. And Tyler Hawes has joined us at the end of last year, and we're super excited to have him with us. He will bring an added extra dimension to us as we continue to grow with the years. Next one, please. Forever Cheers has been doing this for almost 22 years. I started I didn't know anything about cheese, just that I like sheep's milk cheese. And when I was working in Italy, I met Pierluigi Cini. And when I decided to work with him to introduce his family's cheeses, then, you know, that opened a whole other world of wonder, from the producers that we get to work with to the customers that I get to meet as I travel across the States, and to be able to share traditions, new things, moderns, point of view. I feel like it's just a dream job. So one of those things that I feel that I have the burden to is to try and correct or improve things when I see that there are issues. And that's where we'll get up and talk a little bit about the Manchego shortage. Next slide, please. These are just some of the products that we carry. We do Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Croatian. We're very proud of our link directly to the producer, not having middlemen, but being able to go and work together with the artisans, with the farmers, going back to the animals, and to be able to make things happen, whether it's modifying something, creating something new, or just learning everything that there is to learn so that we can help you understand better and become more fired up about introducing and selling the products that we bring. A lot of the things we have pioneered, from a drunken goat, which is actually Dio Morti al Vino, to the garochas. We sell it without the pel florida, the furry little hair, which we'll need to make a decision when the IGP happens, because it'll either be called garocha with the pel florida, or it will be called something else. To waiting 7 years for Iberico de Bellota, even though we weren't the first. It was definitely in my heart to be one of the first that was there. And to bringing the fig cake as an accompaniment, as well as other things to enjoy and have fun with your cheese, and add all these other value-added items. Next slide, please. some of our producers, and many, many, many of them women, that of course we're not being racist or sexist to only promote the women ones, but what's great today that's changed is women have already always been very important in our industries and doing things. They just hadn't gotten all the recognition. So to be able to stand up and celebrate them is really phenomenal. Here we have Paula of Le Tamarici with our mostardas. Cesare, no, you're very much a man, who we work with on our only domestic product, the Casella. The Almond Sisters, Laura and Tanya, below the family of Quattro Portoni. And then we have the Rosso couple, Maria and Enrico. These relationships go really far and deep, as well as the work that we do with all of our employees. We have Enrique, is great to show here after almost 26 years. He's retiring this year. We're celebrating him and we will miss him, but he'll always be part of our family. We do extensive quality control, and me and Everett are always there. If you ever get any boxes that are stamped Forever Cheese, it's because it's been opened by quality control and we're checking all the time to make sure that cheese is happy. And there is Pierluigi again in an odd view that he doesn't like to show up very much. Next slide, please. Keep going, thank you. So Manchego, that iconic sheep's milk cheese from La Mancha, that wonderful buttery, fantastic cheese that's made from the Manchego sheep. Milk is always cyclical. So there are years that there's just so much and there's tons of cheese available. The price of the cheese drops. And then there are years that milk is just in short supply for one reason or another. Over the time of the pandemic, the sales of Manchego cheese skyrocketed, and over the years, from ever since when I've started selling Manchego or started learning about it in the mid-90s until now, there's always been the trend that people no longer want to be shepherds. I should have put one on here, but you know, people's idea, you think shepherd, what's the first thing that comes into your mind? For me, it's very much, it used to be, you know, that iconic man, older man with that face of the centuries, with that, the cap on his head. And then you think of them, you know, maybe with a staff and then with their sheep. So that's not the image of something that many people want to aspire to. And a lot of, you know, young people didn't want to take after their parents, or you know, their infrastructure was just old and outdated and they just weren't able to make ends meet. So little by little, the smaller shepherds just kept disappearing. And the extra percent increase in the cheese plus the diminution of this have created a really difficult situation. So during the pandemic, producers just sold. People didn't sit there and keep track of, you know, how much was in their aging rooms. I mean, I got angry with our guys because we're like, we sell X number of cheese every single year. Why didn't you just put a plaque on it? We usually have a sign, you know, forever cheese, and you don't touch that or whatever, or this is cheese is aging. But this time they just emptied it out. Everybody, there's no cheese. I mean, there's some cheese, but there's not enough. There's no aged cheese because people sold the cheese faster than they could age it. So by the beginning of this year, it really just came to a head. And although I must have talked with, you know, 10 different companies and I worked with so many people and people there, grovel, doing whatever, you know, I could get what I could get. And that was it. They had to, you just have to wait. You have to wait until the cheese ages so that you have it. It's something that's not going away though, with the reduction in the people who want to be a shepherd. There's trouble with goat's milk as well, because the goat's milk demand has just kept skyrocketing too. So I know that we need to do something to change the industry. And I was so lucky that when I was in Spain for Alimentaria, I tripped into the good fortune of meeting the president of Castilla-La Mancha. And they have opened up a dialogue with me to hear my concerns and allow me hopefully to help shape this. But I need to go beyond, because they keep saying, well, we're starting a school to teach people how to be a shepherd. But that's not the answer. The answer is, how do we make people want to be a shepherd? You need that before you have a school to teach them. So I want the entire, like the Spanish government, not a regional government, to go out there and do a campaign to find shepherds and to see what they look like. We're going to stay tuned to our Instagram. We're going to be highlighting some young, hip shepherds, people with, who are raising animals, leading full lives, who have figured it out how to earn money, who are excited to do what they're going to do. They're proud, they're making great cheese, or they've added an agritourism, and it's not the Euro of the past. And so I have a whole list of ideas for the government. I think that I was just talking with a friend the other day. He's going to write me a letter on behalf. Anybody who wants to get involved in this, please just, and another thing, just write to us and let me know. And I'm not quite sure all the steps or what it's going to do, but I know I'm going to fight like hell to try and get more shepherds and to try and work with also Castilla-La Mancha just to improve the milk supply so that we don't have something like this happen again. And there's a lack of communication in all the different various departments, so it's a very long thing. And I don't want to lose all of our time talking about it, but it's definitely one of my hot topics, along with saving the iconic Marcona almond, which has the same problem, that growers are not wanting to plant them because it's a big gamble and they don't always get the return on their on what they've planted. Can you do the screen somehow, or is that me, so I can see also the chat? Because if you've got if anybody's saying anything or questions, I can't see that right now.
Michelle,
So,
I can let you know if it comes in.
okay, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go to the next slide, please. This is a picture that Carmen, my Corcuera Manchego, Corcuera and Trigal producer, sent me for just a cute picture in the countryside with the family of shepherds that they've been working with for many years. And I've asked all of my producers to start sending me stories and different images of people that they're working with. And I'm going to create a file for all of it. He's so cute. Next slide, please. So what do we do in the interim when we have less Manchego than we want to use? There's a lot of other options, and they don't all have to be Spanish. What I'm going to talk about here is mainly Spanish, because I understand that if somebody's looking for Manchego, they might really want the zigzag rind or just something in a Spanish profile. But when I'm thinking of anywhere between 6 months to 1 year, from our Italian things, you can even go with Pecorino Toscano aged. You can go with Bianco Sardo from Sardinia, big sheep, beautiful cheese with that basket rind. That is aged in excess of 6 months too. MITICA Sardo, which has a great full sheepy flavor. Also Sardinian, that's very flaky and scaly. But I know that the Italian pecorinos have kind of like have less of a nuttiness and a more bold nature to it. But it's still good to bring it up because they're wonderful cheeses and you can have lots of different options for people to go. Now, Zamorano is something that Janet Fletcher actually mentioned months ago when she's like, I don't know why people don't pay more attention to this cheese. Castilla-León is right attached to Castilla-La Mancha. So you have lots and lots of plains that are there. And there is a bit more availability. Yeah, we can go there. That's a good idea. Thank you. There's this whole area in Castilla-León where they have tons of sheep's milk cheeses. In fact, we're going to start working with two sisters who make Castellano cheese as well in there, because there's wonderful milk in Castilla-León. Now, when you get to DOP Zamorano, it's more churra and Castellano sheep. And then when you get outside the DOP, you have more people adding some of the asaf. And there's still really great asaf milk because the oveja añejo that we're coming up to is asaf. So it's just the characteristics change. With the churra and the castellana, it's much more like the Manchego sheep. So there's less milk production, higher yield, higher butter fat that creates that particular flavor on the cheese. And our Zamorano is raw milk. It's aged 6 months. For me, it's been amazing that it's one of the cheeses that whenever I taste it, it's just always so perfectly balanced. I never get an astringent nature to it. I never get any metallic parts, just always super buttery and flavorful and really great. And it'll shave and it'll shred, and it can do, you know, as many fun things as you would use for a 6-month Manchego or going age. But it is generally between 6-7 months, you know, maybe 8 would be the last that you would see it there. Great alternative. Next slide, please. So here are some of the sheep that we have. These are nice and shorn and really organized. They do hang out. I crisscross both the areas. And when I was driving from Galicia to Cáceres last year, it was like 7 hours of driving, when I had to get off and turn around and take a detour because I changed where I wanted to go, because I kind of didn't want to drive 2 extra hours. And I ended up right smack in the middle of Zamora and a couple other towns, and there were just sheep everywhere, sheep on one side and all these beautiful yellow flowers on the other. It was quite amazing. Next slide, please. Here we have some more lush green of the time. I don't think we put the one of the shepherd wrestling with it. It would have brought you back to that iconic view of what they are. And so the place where we use, it's not one of our smaller producers, but size doesn't always matter, because what matters is just that consistently they get the right profile, use fresh milk. They use milk from the day before, and you can taste in this flavor just this wonderfully clean cheese that colors your palate and has that wonderful nuttiness that goes for it. I just adore this cheese. Shaved, it would be terrific with, I haven't talked about the accompaniments that come lower, but please definitely try it with the jam that came with you. Now, there are 3 different ones. Some of you have fig and lemon honey. Some of you have blackberry and rosemary, and some of you have the Valencia orange. These are going to be available in these babies for the food show with a brand new look. And we also have a raspberry basil, and I am missing one. Red grape. So some of you actually would have gotten red grape today as well, which I thought was really fun and good, sprightly here. Anyways, let us know how the cheese tastes without, and then also within how it changes it. I really always like to taste things on their own and then move on to it. Sometimes you can notice things on the rind of the Zamorano. The zigzag is a little bit different. The pattern's a little different than some of our Manchegos. You can use a mold that has closer together zigzag rinds. And this is still always to mimic the esparto grasses that used to be woven together and put outside. Also, some people use just the micro perforated rinds, where others use a cheesecloth. And when you use the cheesecloth, you get a little bit more pronounced of the zigzag, whereas with the micro perforated, you get a little bit less. I learned this on my most recent trip to La Mancha when I was visiting a small artisan in Ciudad Real. Next slide, please. So here's just one slide. I have to say that there's big and small. Our guy right now is a little bit bigger in what they're using it in their vats, but and Zamorano DOP can be raw or pasteurized. It doesn't have to just be raw. That's about all I have to say on the Zamorano for right now.
We do have a comment, Michelle, about,
Yes.
I asked everyone to share their thoughts as they're tasting the cheeses. And we have a comment that it's tangy and like salted buttermilk.
Yeah, I actually just opened it up to see that.
Yeah.
That's a fun comment.
Yeah.
Cool. So which is there? Honestly, when you put Zamorano side by side with a Manchego, it's really hard to know which is which, unless you absolutely know it's there. Honestly, I don't know that I could pick it out. I'm going to do that soon and see if I can do it. And I know that I can tell my producers from Manchego to Manchego, so I'll see if I can do Zamorano to this. So it'll be a challenge to you all. Can you do this yourselves and pick which one is the Zamorano? I mean, of course you can if you pick a young Manchego and you pick this one, then it'll be easier to tell. Next slide, please. Just another photo of what you might have. Just to say out there, since a long time ago, when you do all the colors, we've worked to get our people not to use any chemicals in the rinds. So they all have natural colors, which is sometimes a little bit less stable. And so sometimes the coloring changes, but we had worked very hard over the years to make sure that we did that. Next slide. Quicos de chocolate. These are for me like a secret weapon. I don't know about you, but I'm in love with chocolate and salt. And those of you who know the Piedras de Luna might have noticed from that, because there's salt to the cashews before we put the chocolate. And these were more hidden. We always sold them in bulk, but we didn't have them in retail packages to there. But they are just so much fun. They just are so crunchy. So it occupies that space that you just need to have and hear that going on. And yet they're just light, and the chocolate isn't overpowering. There's just enough of the bitter and the sweet and the salted that it is. Yeah, thank you. I see that you agree with me. I mean, honestly, coffee, ice cream, smash it up, put in ice cream, cheese as well. But I just take little packages with me when I travel, because even if they melt a little bit, it's not like some other things. And the other good thing is it's super well priced on top of it. So we always like to mix things that are well priced with the other higher ends, so you could blend things out. You could make a mix of the different chocolate dusted ones. I think this with MITICA would be absolutely, they didn't make it to today's tasting. My first thing was, oh my God, you didn't get it. And now I understand you ate it first. Thank you for sharing that too. But yeah, I think they'd be awesome with MITICA. You could do a whip, you could do it with the cañas. I like it with the fresh cheeses more than anything else. But just wanted to bring a bit of joy to you, because these have been my secret weapon for a long time. And it's about time that they really bust out and crunch the world with the salt and the chocolate and the corn. I don't really like,
I'm sorry, Michelle, did you see the question? Are they safe to give to people with nut allergies?
I'm just looking now. Yes. Look at the tracing statement on the bottom. Let me think about this for 1 second. They will be produced in a facility that processes nuts, I'm pretty sure. So there's usually that disclaimer on these things, because this is made in a facility that just has a chocolate room. And no, they are not safe to give to people with nut allergies, because the quicos de chocolate are made on the very same line. I'm sure that they wash things down, but I'm sure that there's a statement that we put to cover that up. So yeah. So they won't make it at the same time. They'll always clean it, but there's always that possibility of the trace. I don't have history to share with you on this. All I can tell you is I saw this years and years ago. And from when I saw and tasted them, I wanted them, and we've had them in our line. We just haven't talked about them as much as we are doing so now. And yeah, so thank you. If you find other great pairing suggestions with it, please send them to us and to Chelsea, and we'll be happy to post them. We love to hear and learn. And otherwise, hopefully you'll continue to make them disappear and not arrive to their final destination. That's a great comment. Next, please. The smoking goat. Now, the PowerPoint is done in not a tasting order. So we're just mixing things up, because otherwise I would have had this before the Zamorano. But let's talk about the smoking goat for a little bit. I am so glad I got introduced to this cheese. I got to go to Fuerteventura a few years ago. And we were just at that point, we had only really been buying some of the mazzarata, which is a pasteurized majorero. And I wanted to learn more about what the Canaries had to offer, because that was always such really rich, beautiful goat cheese. It like had this caramel nature to the milk. The Canary Islands have a history of goat's milk. They are the primary producers of goat's milk cheeses from an arid climate, and the Manchego goat has thrived in this area because that's the biggest difference between this type of goat and a goat from other area. If you put a Murciana here, it wouldn't do as well because the goat needs to be able to thrive in an arid area. And it still has this great content of butter fat, of calcium, and just has this great flavor. And it also has a decent size production. There's a lot of things that are kind of like historic and part of the Canary history. The island of Fuerteventura has a lot of red earth. So they used to preserve their cheeses by rubbing the red earth on the outside. And that is why the Manchego has like the paprika to mimic that. Other of the more volcanic islands that have more wood, like El Hierro and Tenerife and other areas there, they have more wood, so they were doing smoking. And although this is made on Fuerteventura, it's not the primary way of preserving their cheese, but it was a cool way of doing it. Alicios also has that red look for the earth that's on there. And then you have gofio, cornmeal. So cornmeal is something produced in all the Canaries. They quite love to eat it in their coffee in the morning. And it's very powdery, very, very fine. So these are the three main ways that you find cheeses preserved in the Canaries, with the paprika, with the smoking, and with the cornmeal. So what made me fall in love with this cheese is, because I'm not a huge smoked cheese fan, but this was just fun. You could get the milkiness out of, I'm always telling them, I don't want any more than 15 days aged, because then you could get that milkiness from the goat cheese. Young, milky, elastic, flexible, super springy kind of cheese, just lightly smoked enough that it just makes it so much fun. I love to see it melted. I'm seeing the smoke in goat and Kikos, and I'm going to have to try it. That's super fun to go with. But this is just a fun, easy cheese for people, which makes it, and having the size, the 2-pound size, you can't beat that. And I made sure to taste the smaller one and the larger one, because in general, I've always learned that the larger the cheese, the better the quality. But I tasted over enough time to feel that there was no perceptible difference. And in fact, I liked the smaller size better. So that's why I chose that to work with. Nice to know. Thank you for sharing that. It just spaced out of my head. Hang on. Smoking goat.
I completely agree about the smoking goat and the Kikos. I've been doing that and it's delicious.
I am going to try it. Oh, shoot. Hang on. I had something that just went in and out of my brain really quickly on this cheese. I would plane it. I would shred it. I would shave it. But there was something else I really wanted to say about this that my brain will not let me do it right now. I do like to say, like, if you mix it with like Alicios and Cabra Gofio or whatever, or Manchego, then I kind of like to call it a trilogy. That's one way that I like to merchandise it. You can have all the different colors of the rinds, which are really fun to do. I find that it's good in goat cheese and in textures that you have something too. I didn't find other smoked goat cheeses, so this also made that fun for me. And even though that things are crazy right now and everything's going up and it keeps going up and it keeps going up, I worked with the producer. I said, look, I know that things need to go up, but let's try and keep the pricing of smoking as reasonable as we can, because it would be nice to have another one to really drive home and to keep a very reasonable price there. So that's what we're trying to do, is to really focus and keep that where it is as much as we can. I can't lie. There's just, the other day I talked to a producer on Fuerteventura, and I just heard the catch in their voice when we talked about the feed. The cereals The price of the feed is everywhere. Everybody's feeling the war, and no one can believe just how much that everyone was buying their feed as opposed to growing it. And not all of it, but some components of it, and it was all coming from there. So a lot of the changes, a lot of this, it's really affecting the producers, the people with their own herds. And so hopefully together we'll all get through this and be able to really, you know, help and keep sales up, because if then sales drop off, which can because of the pricing, then it's worse even for the farmer. So it's just an overall scary time for people, and not just in the transport, but everything that's going on with the availability of things. Yay. I'm glad you looked at there. Yeah, I have to say, I was very reluctant when they first showed me this cheese. I'm like, no, I don't like smoked. Okay, I'll try it. And then the other thing, the reason we changed the name too, because the name was kind of weird. It was tofu. And I'm like, everybody would think, what? Toffee? This doesn't talk about cheese. So hopefully Smoke and Goat will have found its place for a long time in your cases. And I love supporting this producer. If we go to the next slide, I'm just talking without moving slides, sorry. Here's Fuerteventura. Over here, really, really windy. In the north, there's lots of beautiful, we'll go to the next one so we can see what the topography looks like. Here we go. Very volcanic, so different in the north with the beaches, and then in the center, which looks like the Sahara Desert minus the windmill. It just changes, you know, just 45 minutes and you look like you're somewhere else. So that is very much a part of the diet of the animal and in the flavor profile of what the cheeses are. Next slide, please.
Surrounded by the Atlantic and born out of fire and ash, the Canary Islands are home to the Majorero goat, the native breed that is well adapted to its arid surroundings. Cheese making since ancestral times has been instrumental in the gastronomy and economy of the islands, preceded by 2,000 years of grazing. The milk, dense and aromatic, is collected daily from the neighboring island of Lanzarote and transported using refrigerated trucks to our cheese plant in Fuerteventura. Through 15 days of aging and a process of natural smoking, we obtain a truly unique cheese. The landscape and climate of these islands have shaped the way of life of their inhabitants and animals. From this tradition and sense of place, the smoking goat is born. A delicious smoked young cheese with a lactic flavor elegantly complemented by smoky notes and an elastic, meltable texture. Smoking goat is a must-try cheese.
So we put that together, and one of the things I noted, the smoking goat, the milk does come from Lanzarote. The Majorero cheese, the goat's milk, comes from Fuerteventura. If they have extra milk, they tend to use it also to make alicios and smoking, but otherwise they don't have enough milk on that island, so they definitely use Lanzarote too. Gran Canaria is the one that has the cow's milk, and then these two are the main islands for goat's milk cheeses. It is only 15 days aged, yes. This is Esteban. I'm so happy he came to the States because it was a cheese. We used to buy Canary Island cheeses from a third party years and years ago, and then the supply dried up. And then we found one cheese, and it was one of the producers we just didn't have any relation to because we bought it third hand. And we got to meet during a fancy food show. And I'm so happy about it because I love him. I love his fiance, and it's really changed the relationship. So now we have all these wonderful cheeses. But he took over from his father 13 years ago when his father dumped everything in his hands after he had just been back from a 10-year hiatus. He had been there for 3 days, and his father's like, it's your son. And they're responsible for commercializing 80% of the Canary Island milk everywhere, helping to sell the cheeses, export, helping to organize other farmers. They have their own herd as well, but they really do a big job. And they've been a great partner working with us. We work together. We're still selling off some of their younger mazzurata with paprika, which was part of the cheese emergencies when they had so much cheese left over because there was no tourism for the year. And this is just one of the occasions when you can get to know people more, and then there's just, you know, an open line of communication. So it's been fantastic to work with them, and they really listen to our needs. So that's wonderful to hear. Thanks, Esteban. Next slide, please. Here's some more images of the Majorero goat. And they're tall, they're really tall. They can go, smoking goat would be aged, and then, yes, it is smoked after aging, yes. These are really tall, strong goats. They're really amazing. And they hang out outside most of the day, and they just go inside when they're going to be milked. So these were all taken when I went there. Next slide, please. And Marco has been with them for over 20 years. So these are just some images at the cheese plant. That's with Alicios, which means that's the name of the trade winds which blow over the Canaries. And this is, Alicios is the name of our 70/30 cow and goat's milk cheese. And pretty soon it'll be their name too, because they like it better than the name they have. So we've worked out an agreement that they'll use the name Alicios in Spain too. Next slide, please. Any more questions or comments on the Canary Islands before we go to TARALLI? Okay. Forever Cheese is not the first to bring TARALLI, not by a long shot. But these were the first TARALLI that I really got excited about. I used to run away from TARALLI because they really were uncomfortable to eat. They used to get stuck in my Adam's apple. I'd cough. It was just not pleasant. And I still have this thing that wherever I go, I buy and I try TARALLI. Sometimes it just tastes like fried whatever, fried dough. Other times they're just so hard, I think I'm going to break a tooth. And I remember when Johnny came by with his, I was like, no. He's like, just taste them. Like, no. I'm getting jaded over the years. And finally he convinced me and I tasted them. And I was so surprised in a good way. And I've gone to visit them a few times. It's such a cool place. I mean, it's just like churning out these crazy little looped crackers, but they're just so amazing. When I talked to him the other day, he was really stressed because they use Italian wheat, but because of all the problems around Europe with the war, it's creating a fight in Italy for the wheat now too. So he has to work really hard to secure his supplies. Next, well, I want to point out something in the packaging. At first, we didn't realize that we had created like stripes and solids, but this is how I refer to our line because we like both designs. And for those of you who know me, I like to wear like different earrings. I have been noted to wear 2 different color shoes, but they're the same style. I really like that mixing and matching. So you really have to get like more than one flavor to get the full effect of the line. So if you can see, some have the stripes one and the other one is like diagonal with the ones there. All of our flavors are to the far left. You have turmeric and chia. There's cacio and pepe, and that's made with fulvi. We ship the cheese down to Johnny and then he makes this just for us. And that was a funny story because we had to get just the right amount of cheese and pepper. And he ended up having to like FedEx TARALLI to different points of Italy for me to make sure, because I wasn't sure where I was going to be. And then I used my friends as guinea pigs to make sure that we had the right percentage. You have fennel, peperoncino, multigrain, farro, grano arso. For those of you who don't know what grano arso is, it's an ancient technique in the area of Puglia. They take the grain, they take the bran before it's hulled, and then they scorch it, and then they grind it and they use it to make in pastries and crackers and different things. And then the final one, which is the classic. So it's a family company and they're located, like I said, in the area, which is in Puglia. There are literally probably like 500 companies within like a 20-kilometer radius. Next slide, please. Here's just some photos of when I went to the plant of them shaping them by hand. They do kind of come out with an extruder, and then they get tested by hand to make sure that their form is properly, round. And here's the dough, which is there. Next slide, please. Oh, okay. I always forget how many we show you. Things I could also tell you about there. The taralli, as I said, they have a flakiness, which you can tell in tasting them. They are made with extra virgin olive oil as well. We are going to update the packaging coming soon. The bag will be made even more. It'll be 100% recyclable. And we're working on that currently. Things just take longer right now. Oh, what is happening with me today? I need to eat more taralli and keep me more focused. I had another thing that I wanted to bring to your attention for there. All the flavors there. They, to me, are just like a perfect accompaniment to so many different things, as you can tell. So you can eat them not just with cheese or spreaded cheese. You can put, something like a little canapé. You can put a little twill of jamon on top and then put a dollop of cheese up on there. You can get really creative. You could use it for dunking. And again, for me, that they have to be that little bit of crumbly, yet they have the moistness and aren't, overly dry. We have them in bulk as well. That's what I wanted to tell you. There's a bulk one. So for those of you who don't want to do retail, you can buy it in like a Marcona tubish kind of thing, and then you can pack it out yourself. And they also come with repack labels. Yeah, no, I agree. This is my snack. I take these when I travel. They hold up. I'm going to be going away for some days, and I have it on my list of things that, along with Marconas, I learned, why am I buying stuff in the airport when I can just go and take them from the things that we sell, and they'll be much better. For some of you who are looking for smaller packages, I also saw that Johnny offers kind of like a plastic bag with like little, I forget the size of it, maybe like 4 ounces. You can get like a bunch of little packages in one, kind of like a little snack one to put in the kids' lunch, or to use them on cheese trays or something like that. We've never really brought them in here. We have a couple samples in the warehouse though. So if anybody was interested, you can just let us know. Oh wait, I have to read this. I don't even know what a roux is.
It's a combination of butter and flour that you use to thicken things.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you for using them in your holiday plates. Yay, that's so cool. Thank you, working hard, and have a few things up our sleeve for you yet after our most recent trip. Look at this beautiful roncal. This was a fun photo when we took it. Look at those textures. Ah, wonderful cheese. Great alternative as well to aged Manchego, because we always bring the roncal minimum 8 months. Always raw milk, this DOP. This is never pasteurized cheese. This sheep is the Lacha. And there's still today only like 5 producers of roncal. I just want to like stare at this picture for longer, but we'll continue on to the next slide. Here we are in the Valle del Roncal, where the red is. It's actually pretty remote, and it's really close to France. When we were going up in the mountain to go across the plain that's called for the Roncal Valley, then you go up one little bit more above the tree line and you step over and they're like, here, welcome to France. So it's pretty cool going up in there. Next. We work with Quesos Lara, which is one of the 4 or 5 producers. We have our own brand on it. It's a family company. It's Miguel and his brother and his wife. And they recently moved into a larger cheese plant, an aging room. And it's been helpful and really good. Although I have to say, we went there shortly after the pandemic, and it was still kind of like eerie and quiet around there. It actually really hit them hard. They had to stop for a few months because a lot of their people got sick, so they just stopped producing. Next slide, please. Here we are. Look at those beautiful sheep in this area. So most of it is all mountainous. There's the valley too, but most of the sheep are up on the plateau, and they're out there like most of the time, and they only come in to be milked. You can see on some of them where they're markings so that we know who it belongs to, and has a very different microclimate that adds to the flavor of this. This is the first DOP cheese. It doesn't get all of its to do because we don't think about it all the time. And sometimes you can get quite a big kick to it, especially when it ages even longer. And if you go to the Basque people, like I live with a Basque man and some other people, chefs here, I brought in a 2-year aged cheese, which is so intense and biting. And they think it's the best thing in the world. And I can get the smell of the Parmigiano. Oh, it's so nutty. And that's just one of the wonderful factors about it. It has just nuances and layers that keep going, and yet very balanced at the same time. Next slide, please. Here's Miguel and his brother, Elidoro. So Miguel is more on the outside. They're both in production, and Elidoro's in the store as well. And Miguel's more on the other side, but actually I didn't catch that. He likes to be called Mikel, which is the Basque version of it. But yeah, they've been doing it for over 25, 30 years now. And people still come around from the town. The town's kind of Burgui is the name of the town. There's one bakery that opens at 2 in the afternoon. I guess nobody wants to get up early. There's no restaurant in their town. It was a very unusual visit that we had. And then everybody comes and knocks on the door and goes to their little shop to buy their cheese. And his wife and I share our love of our sheep collection that we share and send to each other. I love the way they make their cheese. I think they just do a wonderful job. And it wasn't easy at the beginning trying to get people like this who were so used to a very traditional way of making cheese. And then we had to do our analyses to make sure with a raw milk cheese, you have to analyze by your lots and keep people with all the FSMA. But we do all of that. We get our analyses, our certificate of analysis, to make sure that the cheeses are safe, that they're within the parameters that we need to be in for Listeria, Salmonella, E. coli, and Staphylococcus. And so just know that we're always working and doing that and making sure and checking even before FSMA happened, that to make sure that things were safe. Can I talk about the rind? It is definitely a natural rind, and they'll just brush it. They'll brush the mold off. There's nothing else added there. There might be a little bit of olive oil that's added, and sometimes you even see some orange mold. And the molds are alive. They're definitely in the aging room. When I was in Ciudad Real last week, that cheesemaker talked about the individual types of the molds in his aging room and how each one was important in the development of his cheese, and that if he eradicated them, it would not have the same flavor in the cheese. So they let them grow, they let them age, and then they brush them off, and then they send them. And I will never stop talking about how mold is important, that it's important that it lives, that it helps the cheese live to become its special flavor profile, each one of its own. And that if we kill all of it, then we're killing a part of the cheese that's there. So the more that we can make people understand that, the better it is. No mold equals, some sort of a preservative. So I will keep talking about that. Mold is our friend for sure. Yes. Next slide, please. Here's some of the cheese as it's pressing. Generally, the cheese will be pressed for 2 hours, and then they'll take it out of the cheesecloth, put it back in, flip it, and press it for another 2 hours. Next, sorry. The rind on the Zamorano and the smokin with, I have to talk fast, Zamorano has a paint on the rind, and the rind is meant to mimic the Esparta grass. I know that was one of the things I wanted to tell you. On Smoking Goat, the rind pattern is meant to mimic palm leaves that have been woven together. And that's why the Mazzarata and the Smokin' and the Alicios, they all have that loopy rind, because they used to use palm leaves to mold the cheeses instead of that. And then the Roncal is a natural rind, as is our next cheese, which is Oveja Añejo. This cheese, even though the rind is different than what they do, is one is the perforated mold, but they also rub olive oil on this cheese, on the rind, all throughout its aging process. And then they brush it. They brush it on a regular basis. And that creates, I call it like a jeans. To me, it's like it's wearing a pair of very tight jeans. One of the most beautiful molds from all of the Los Cameros rinds that they have. The oveja, meaning sheep, añejo, meaning 1 year. This is from La Rioja, Spain. This is a family company, and this is made from a single herd of Asaf sheep. And I have to say that before this cheese, I didn't have a lot of that much respect for the Asaf as I do now, because this cheese is almost smoky in its amazing flavor profile. Can you go to the next slide, please? Here's we are. It's in Aro, which is right in the center of La Rioja. Great wine, great cheese. Next slide. Here's their Asaf, the herd. So it's a single herd, always the milk from that same cheese. And look at that mold. This is the Oveja Añejo before it comes here. So they just let it grow mold. They brush it off. They rub it with olive oil. They let it grow mold. They brush it off. They rub it with olive oil. That's continually for the whole time. This was like a project that one of the family members, there's Jesus, Javier, and Sonia. I think they're in the next slide. And here we go. So this was the guy with the beard's idea. And then they had like kind of a competition between the brothers. And so the brother then went and made the Señorio de Vaca. So then he did the single herd of freezing cows, both which are amazing. These are pasteurized, yes. I don't know what's in La Rioja. Maybe all of them drink wine as they're making the cheese, but each of the cheeses that this family makes has just special flavors into them. The Oveja Añejo, like I said, has almost a smoky quality. The Señora de Vaca has this caramel notes to it and sweetness. Occasionally you'll find a bit of mold in the center, but not very often. So great alternative also to an aged Manchego. Beautiful rinds, great flavor profile. The size of their plant, they're not huge. They're not tiny, but they're not huge and just super consistent. And they won like a number of awards, both in Wisconsin and at there. And I don't need the awards to let, you know, to highlight the fact that they're just great cheesemakers. They really are. Here's some more of our sheep. Yeah.
I will interject very quickly because I have visited them, as you know, Michelle. And if you ever find yourself in Aro, Rioja, go visit this family and taste these cheeses with them, because they are the kindest, most lovely people. I mean, everybody I met in Spain was like that, but they were particularly wonderful. So, and they have a lovely tasting room.
Yeah, they do. Look at those cute sheep. Sorry, sheep too, there. So here's just some more photos here of the production process. Nice photo of that. And then this is what the look of our new mini jams will look like. Hopefully they should be here in time for the fancy food show. As I said, so you all got different ones because we didn't have enough of them here. So we just like sent out different flavors. So please give your feedback to us. We'd love to hear what you like. Anybody who wants to visit, yeah, you probably need to contact me. A lot of factories aren't open to the public, and also depending when it is. I mean, I couldn't get into some places for a while, you know, of course, during the pandemic and things like that. The mini jams that we're doing are coming from our friends at Paya Rope, the Valles family, with Guillermo, Jesus, Andres and Luis, and mom and dad. And I don't remember the name of their pooch, but very important in the recipe process. They still are always dedicated to the freshest and finest of everything agricultural. I'll just say that they built an entire area just to get their figs, clean their own figs, process their figs from A to Z so that they have the complete process so that they control that. And we're working on more organics with them now too, as well as being able to do a lot more minis of anything, fig, date, the fig bites that we do, small doses, bigger doses. If you need like small individual things in flow pack, they can do all of it. If I was leading a tasting of these 4 cheeses, what order would you taste them in? I would do smoke and goat, zamorano, oveja añejo, and then roncal, like that. And we have come to, yay.
Almost
Yeah, I
there.
really like that one. So any more questions, comments, other things? It's always so wonderful to get in front of everybody and to have you want to be with us and to hear about it. And we appreciate you all and can't wait to see you if you're going to come to the food show in the summer or at ACS in Portland.
Yes, thank you, everybody. This has been a great presentation, as I had no doubt it would be. And all of these cheeses are just amazing. I've not tasted all of them before today. I know a couple of people said that some of these were new to them too. So that's very, very exciting. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us this afternoon. And thank you all to joining us. And thank you so much to Michelle for your time and expertise. It's always fascinating to listen to you talk about these products that you're so passionate about. So
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thank you.
thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you soon.
Yep.